This episode of the Mega Meeple is brought to you by our supporters over at Podpledge. Alright, welcome back to the Mega Meeple, this show all about gamers and the games that bring them together. This is episode, 47? Yes, 47. Still counting down to our 50th episode. Not too far away. It's going to be happening also the same weekend as International Tabletop Day, so there's going to be a lot of celebration and gameage that weekend. And a little more about that later. But a few things that I want to talk about. I got an email actually yesterday from the day that we're recording this section of the episode, saying that, and you may remember a while back we had Patrick from the Table of Ultimate Gaming interview. Let's see, it's actually episode 16. From August 26th of 2017. We had Patrick Meyer of the Ultimate Gaming Table. It was on Kickstarter at the time. It funded like 1,000% or so, only after like a few days or so. But it's a modular style gaming table. And again, you go back to episode 16 and listen to that. And actually, that particular episode also ties into this episode in another way I'll get into in a little bit. But I got an email yesterday saying that the first containers shipment that has arrived in the U.S., one of those little containers contains my table that will be delivered here very shortly. Really excited about that. And as a result, that's sort of like the last needed element to the Mega Meeple Studios. I know I've kind of putting out a lot of videos to our YouTube channel, just because it just takes a while for me to dress up the table that we have now to make it look good for video presentations and stuff. But now that we'll be getting the gaming table, that will be the last element to complete the Mega Meeple Studios, and as a result, you will see a lot more how-to videos, a lot of Let's Play videos, and walkthroughs of games that will also just be able to be presented a lot better with a proper gaming table. And actually, when we get the gaming table, we will do a video of us putting it together, and after a few plays of games, I will also do a review of the table, so you can look for that on our YouTube channel. Speaking of such, if you haven't already, just follow us on any of our social media thing. We have Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that crap, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. So you can be notified when those videos go up, and you'll be able to see the table in its glory being assembled, and you'll be able to see how easy or how hard it is to put together. And all those links are found on the social media page on the website. That's www.themegameeple.com. And also on episode 16, where we had the interview with Patrick Meyer of the Ultimate Gaming Table, the title to that particular episode is called A Public Apology, where I basically offer a public apology, and I review restoration game Stop Thief. I remember back very first episode of the podcast was Don't Mess With Our Childhood, where I kind of poo-pooed the whole thing of restoration games bringing back Stop Thief game, and how hesitant and skeptical I was on how good that game would be, and I was kind of put off about the possibility that Restoration Games and Rob Daviau would put that game out, and it just wouldn't be as good as I remember that game being in my childhood. And after getting the game, I reviewed it on episode 16, and I basically offer up a public apology to Rob Daviau and Restoration Games about me being wrong about my initial impressions of that. Well, that ties into this episode, because this episode, my guest is none other than Rob Daviau from Restoration Games. He's going to be talking about the most requested reboot to Restoration Games when they put out a survey asking what old games would you like to see brought back and modernized. And by far, Fireball Island was the most requested. So I have Rob on the episode today talking about that game and Kickstarter. And before we get into it, I since I had him on Skype, I apologized to him personally. So because it's just very entertaining. So stay tuned for that interview on the second half of this episode. Now again, as I mentioned earlier, we are approaching our 50th episode, which also is the same weekend as our 1-year anniversary as a podcast. And again, that's happening on the weekend of International Tabletop Day, April 28th and 29th. And it's going to be a very special episode as we celebrate our 50th episode, a 1-year milestone marker. And we've said in past episodes, you could go ahead and get your 15 seconds of fame by submitting a audio clip of you saying just your name, and you listen to the Mega Meeple and wishing the Mega Meeple a happy 50th episode or a happy 1-year anniversary, however you want to embellish that, and send that audio clip in a MP3 or WAV file format to megameeple@outlook.com. And your audio clip will be played at the beginning of the 50th episode. We've already gotten about well over a half a dozen audio clips from past guests, and I think you're going to really enjoy hearing that. We also got some audio clips from other content creators, and very much thank you to them for submitting and supporting the Mega Meeple. It's only going to get better from here. We've come a long way from episode 1. We've improved a lot. We've expanded a lot. And looking forward to seeing how this podcast grows and evolves and improves over the second year. But also in celebration of that milestone, we've wanted to have like a contest or at least a giveaway just to show our appreciation to all of you for supporting and listening and spreading the word of the Mega Meeple and just contributing to its ongoing success. So we really couldn't come up with a really good contest that at least that would be fair to everybody and also would be easy for me to be able to choose a winner. So a lot of these things will, when someone does like a contest or a giveaway, at least they'll have something like, okay, subscribe to our YouTube channel or subscribe to the podcast or whatever. And I understand that they do that for two reasons. Number one, they want to grow, they want to expand their audience, and also two, if they're going to be picking a winner from that giveaway, they need to have some way to track who likes or who subscribes them. And the only way to be able to do that and not have a bunch of anonymous submissions, actual names put to the submissions, they need to be able to keep track of who liked a page or who subscribed or something like that, and that way they'll be able to personally identify the winner and let that winner know. So that's another reason why they do that. So rather than doing a contest, I think we're just going to do a simple random giveaway. And since Jamie Stegmeyer was not only our very first guest on episode 3, but he was also our first return guest. Yes, he actually came back, and in episode 28, date December 3rd, 2017, and was talking about the Legendary Box, new things for Scythe, and also talked about Charterstone. So since Jimmy Stegmaier holds those distinctions, we thought we would give away a copy of Scythe. We have basically two ways that you could enter for a chance to win a copy of Scythe. And one is to go to iTunes and subscribe to the podcast, and also leave us a 5-star rating and give us a happy review. But I know that not everybody uses iTunes, or not everybody is an Apple or Apple guy. So rather than excluding all those people, if you're not into iTunes or Apple, another alternative way you could enter into for the free giveaway is just go to our Facebook page and like our Facebook page and follow us there. So if you haven't already, go to our Facebook page. Again, the link to those, all that stuff is on the social media page on the website. Just go to the Facebook page and like and follow us there. And the winner will be drawn during our 50th episode. So you don't have too long to do. This is episode 47. So 3 episodes from now, 3 weeks from now, we will be choosing the winner of the free giveaway for a copy of Scythe by Jamie Stegmaier and Stonemaier Games. All right, well, I'm going to go off on a little rant here. I'm starting to get into the season of time that a lot of the games that I backed last year on Kickstarter are starting to get delivered. So I'm starting to get quite a few games, and a lot more games than I had the time, or at least the availability of enough friends that's able to be available at the same time to come over to play it, to actually do a review or talk about it. Any of those games at length. I have done City of Games a few times solo. I'll be putting at least a solo review of that coming up soon. Stay tuned for that on the website. About the whole Kickstarter thing, I mean, it says on Kickstarter itself that Kickstarter is not a store. I could debate that in certain instances, particularly a game comes out on Kickstarter that says that it's a Kickstarter exclusive, that the game is not going to be available for retail or publicly, that the only way to get the game is to back it on Kickstarter. So, situations like that, I could see where people could argue against that Kickstarter is not a store, because hell, if that's the only way you get the copy of the game is to back it on Kickstarter, then and essentially you're buying the game through Kickstarter. But I'm talking about companies, and the thing is, one of the things I don't like about Kickstarter is some of these big, huge conglomerate types publishers. They have more than enough resources to be able to create and publish and distribute a game, and people are going to buy it. It's going to be enough people interested in buying that it's going to be a profit for them. They don't need to go to the people and say, hey, would you please help us make this game? They don't need any help to make that game. CMON is a big example of this. CMON has more than enough resources to make whatever damn game they want, and people will buy it. They don't need to go to the people and the masses saying, can you please back our game? The early idea of Kickstarter is to give some of these smaller companies, these small mom and pop and one-man business companies, the resources and the opportunity to be able to publish their games or whatever product that they're wanting to create and put out there. If you go back and see the listings of all of our guests that we've had over the past 47 episodes, going all the way, 44 episodes, because our very first guest was, in episode 3 with Jamie Stegmaier. But if you go through all the list of guests that we've had, it's not always been these big, huge, well-known games. I've had guests on this podcast, people that small mom and pop and one-man operations. I've had those people on as guests because I feel that, if they have a good idea, if it's a good game, then I want to be able to help them to get their word out about and hopefully get some attention and support going their way. So yeah, if you go back and see all the guests that we've had on the Mega Meeple, it's been a mix of big time, well-known names and creators and designers that chances are you never heard of them. And you probably would not have ever heard of them if it wasn't for us having them on as a guest on our show. And that it's people like those that Kickstarter, Indiegogo and stuff like that are made for. They may or may not have the necessary funds or resources out of their own pocket to be able to create their dream. So they could go to Kickstarter and ask for funding to help them create their game and live their dream and give something to the people who back them. But again, it says Kickstarter is not a store, and I look at Kickstarter. You got to really look at Kickstarter as an investment. Okay, you're not buying this game; you are investing in a game that you want to see made. And things like Kickstarter exclusives are, you could think of those as like a kickback. It's a reward to the investors of that project by the creators or designers that just want to be able to put something extra in there as a thank you for people believing in them enough to, invest their money into it. When you think of it as an investment, you got to understand that crap happens. Sometimes, things don't get created. A lot of times they don't get created and shipped out in the time frame that was initially expected. It certainly doesn't come in the time frame that people want it to go. I mean, I invested in a game called Deep Madness. And it's been well over a year since, and there's still no sign of that game being actually finished and sent out to people. I get updates every once in a while, but it's usually, hey, here's some photos or something of prototypes of what we got. But it's cool to see some pictures of what you guys are doing. But I think it's about time that this crap be done by now, and I should be starting to see that stuff on my doorstep. So yeah, things don't actually happen in the way or how fast timeline that you would want it, and especially when we live in a society of fast food and video on demand and instant gratification. A lot of people just don't have the patience to wait. Which I even touched upon that on one episode. I talked about what do people do when they kickstart a game or support a game on Kickstarter, where it could be well over a year before you even see that game delivered. What do you do when you have to put the money up front and then wait a long time? How do you pay on the time of waiting? I'm going to address that at the end of this rant. Again, Kickstarter is not a store. You're not buying the game. You're investing in it. And if you talk to any investor, they will tell you you do not invest money into something that you are not prepared to lose, because there are no guarantees. And this is where I think I'm going to get a lot of heat on this, but it's my thought and feeling that Kickstarter doesn't owe you a damn thing. You are investing in a project. And that project may, even if it's funded, it may not actually come to fruition. It may not actually be made, and it's certainly not going to be made and delivered in the time frame that was initially thought, and definitely not during the time frame that you want it to be made in. And especially when it comes time that the estimated delivery time arrives and comes and goes and still nothing. People in their comments, if you read some of the comments on Kickstarter towards these designers, I almost laugh at the thought that, oh God, it's like these people, they just throw respect and courtesy out the window. They just get to the point where they're trash talking the project or even threatening them. And if it's a project that never delivered, then hey, yeah, raise a stink about it. Let people know, hey, this particular designer or publisher didn't deliver on their Kickstarter. You might want to be a little wary in investing your money to any other projects that they have. Yeah, let that be known. But also understand that, hey, that's a lesson learned for you. You invested in that project. You lost your money. Well, you know better not to do that next time. And especially if it's announced that shipping has started and somebody gets an email with their tracking number or gets an email saying that they're getting their product soon, and they post that on the comments on the project. Hey, I got my tracking number yesterday. Got an email. Yeah. Oh, holy hell! Everybody else, like, if they don't get their tracking number like within the same day, they start trash talking the project. Where's my tracking number? Where's my email? What about me? What about me? It's like everybody. It's like if you haven't gotten a tracking number within 24 hours of the first person posting that they got their tracking number, all of a sudden they start getting paranoid that order has been left behind. And again, the concept of order. Okay, when you do an order, that implies that it's a store. You're ordering something from a store. Kickstarter's not a store. It's a venue for you to invest your money into a project that you enjoy or that you would like to see made. That's it. So when it comes time that the project is being delivered and somebody starts getting their tracking emails, people need to start curbing their comments or their attitudes when they comment on these projects. Just because you don't get your tracking email. There are times where I've gotten projects that I never got a tracking email, or I've got the email after the damn thing was actually delivered to me. Whether or not you get a tracking email is not indicative of the project has not been sent to you, or you somehow been forgotten. Your shipment has somehow gotten lost. Just because you don't get your tracking email immediately after reading a comment that someone in another state or even in your same geographical area got their email, be patient. Don't you at that point you probably waited at least a year for some announcements. So don't get so paranoid or throw common courtesy and respect out the window and start blasting these people just because you didn't get your email. So at times like that, people just need to check their attitudes at the door and take your PMS medicine and chill out. So as far as I see it, you need to look at Kickstarter as an investment, and you better not invest in something that, number one, you don't believe in, that you do not want to at least see the potential of being published, and you better not invest money that you're not prepared to lose. And when it comes time to project to be delivered, don't start yelling at the designer or the project admin demanding answers or demanding that they deliver what they promise, because hey, promises can be broken. Newsflash, people. Deal with it. So really, when it comes to investing in projects for Kickstarter, the best thing to do is, okay, you see something on Kickstarter you like, you invest your money to that project, and then just forget about it. So if and when that project is delivered to your door, hey, it's like Christmas again. It's a pleasant surprise. Merry Christmas, Happy Birthday, whatever. And I could tell you, I'm a lot more picky on the projects that I back on Kickstarter anymore than I did last year. Well, one reason is because I don't have as much money this year as I did last year, so I'm pretty picky on what I give my money to. As I played more games and the longer I am in the whole gaming circle and community, I've learned more about what I enjoy and what I don't enjoy, and the breadth of themes and styles of games that I enjoy are getting slimmer and slimmer. But hey, that's just me. What the hell do I know? So that would be a good question of the week. Have you ever invested in a Kickstarter project that you later regretted, never been fulfilled, or the promises was never delivered, or the game was delivered and it just wasn't, it turned out to not be what you were expecting and you were disappointed by that? Yeah, let us know what you think. Welcome back to the Mega Meeple. This week's episode is I used to think that Jamie Stegmaier being our first guest was the biggest guest we could have, but I think this week's guest trumps that quite a bit. We have this guy he's a co-host of the Game Design Roundtable podcast. He's winner of numerous awards in game design. He's even guest lectured on game design at MIT, Carnegie Mellon, Hampshire College, and he's the chief restoration officer of Restoration Games and designers of such games as Seafall, Pandemic Legacy, Risk Star Wars, Betrayal House on a Hill. My goodness, it goes on and on and on. We have none other than Rob Daviau. Rob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right. I don't want to take anything away from Jamie. He is a star guest.
he was our very. I emailed him out it was like the third episode or something like that, and I was new. I was too stupid to know any better. It's like there's no way he's gonna agree to come on this little tiny podcast. And sure enough, he said hi. Yeah, he said yes and hi, and I was like, oh crap! Now what do I do?
You just talk. You just ask questions.
But before we get on with the interview, Rob, while I have you on the phone, I just got to say I want to apologize to you. When I started the podcast about a year ago, it was when Stop Thief was announced for Kickstarter, and the topic of my very first podcast episode was "Don't mess with my childhood," and I just kind of ranted as like, oh god, because I remember getting Stop Thief when I was a kid. It was a Christmas gift to me, and it was one of the games I just loved as a little brat. And I thought to myself, oh god, please don't ruin this. I mean, I'm kind of upset, when Hollywood tries to do a reboot, they can't even do it right. So I was kind of hesitant and kind of skeptical, but I backed the Stop Thief Kickstarter. I got it, and I think it was episode 14 or 15 or something like that. But I issued a public apology to Rob and Justin and just said I was wrong. You proved me wrong. I apologize. So now, while I have you on the phone, I just want to say, person to person, I'm sorry, Rob. I doubted you guys, and you had not only did you pay homage and respect to our childhood memories and love of the game, but you guys have made it even better. So it's now a new adult game memory that we have just to add to that. So I apologize. I hope you forgive me.
I think we're all going to be okay. I mean, you have an opinion, and there's a lots of people who like don't want to see something changed or different because they have these very comforting memories of their childhood. Maybe it got them into gaming. Maybe it was a present, like in your case. And, with restoration games, because that's what we do. We reboot games. We and I, as the sort of the chief game designer, take it really seriously. Doesn't mean we'll always get it right, but we try to figure out, why did people like it? Mm-hmm. What are their memories? If you ask them about it, where are their happy memories? Because when you're a kid, you're going to tune out the parts that don't work. Right. We're just bundles of imagination. So we will make it work better than it actually works. And so we try to find those, and we try to figure out the expectations. And we're going to talk about Fireball Island today. And that was tough just because people remember it being very fast and very big, mm-hmm. and nonstop adventure. And while it was big and it was fast and it did have adventure, it's not nearly as big as people's memories. So we somehow, when we were redoing this game, had to sort of make it as good as people remember, which is tricky to do. So we'll see. But no, have a big passionate opinion. That's what makes it fun.
Okay, great. Well, now that we cleared the air, we could get on with the interview. So.
Yeah, now we can put our dueling pistols away and continue on.
So, but tell us, for those of our listeners that maybe have just new to gaming or just been living under a rock over the past 20 years, just tell us how you got involved in gaming and just sort of like your background as far as designing epic games. This is just almost 20 years in the industry. It'll be 20 years this fall, and I sort of came in a way it was sort of like the end of a 20th century way of doing it, which was I got a job at Parker Brothers, which was part of Hasbro, as an in-house designer, and was there for about 14 years until 2012. Then in 2012, left and have been working for myself for 6 years now. And about half the time I spend on original designs. That's why I did Pandemic Legacy and Seafall and Mountains of Madness. Then for the past 2 years, I've been spending the other half of my time sort of building up and working on Restoration Games, which is a new publisher. And our goal is to take out-of-print games, find these lost treasures, and sort of polish them up and reboot them for a new audience. And so I'm part design, where I give them to another publisher, and part design, where we keep it in-house and publish it ourselves. And that's where I am. And as you mentioned at the top of the show, I've done some teaching and some lecturing. But mostly, as I branched out, I always just come back and just kind of want to make games all day. Excellent. The next game on the Restoration Games list is a new Kickstarter that is actually, at the time of this recording, is going to be coming out in the next week or so, and that is Fireball Island.
It's from when we're recording, it's 8 days away. We just had the usual level of panicky meeting, for restoration. Like, oh, it's 8 days, but really, like, the Kickstarter page needs to be done in 5. It's Fireball Island. Fireball Island. When we started restoration, we asked, and we continue to ask. You can just go to our website, restorationgames.com, and we just ask people, what game do you want to see from your childhood? And we get this huge cross range of games, because it just depends on how old they were and what they like. But you start to see some common threads. And by and large, in our first year, the one that rose to the top was Fireball Island. And my partner in the company, Justin, he's a lawyer by trade. So he is able to work deals and track down rights and naming rights and licensing rights. And he's sort of like, it's a fun fetch quest for him. He really is good at it and enjoys doing it. So he spent about a year putting all the pieces together for us to be able to redo Fireball Island. And it came together last summer, and we've spent the past, 9 months trying to build this giant island that rolls marble down and knock figures over, which oddly enough is a lot harder than it sounds. To do it and make it affordable to us and affordable to the end consumer, and be fun and be reminiscent of the original game and fit in a box. So we had to keep working that, and we're getting really close. Like, the Kickstarter is going to launch, but we're still going to have about 6 weeks of final development. And we're actually taking the game on a little road show around the East Coast and Midwest and just playing it with different people to like just get as many voices in as possible.
Okay, cool. So my understanding is this reboot of Fireball Island is not so much a direct reboot, but it's like a sequel to the original game. Like it takes place years later, or did I read that right?
Yeah, it does. We were looking at, when we're bringing the game back, there's the gameplay, there's the graphics, there's the story that goes around it. And, we figure out what can we keep, what can we give away. In most cases, in almost all cases, we're never going to use the original art because that is owned and copyrighted by the original publisher. And it would make it look more like a reprint or a retro reprint rather than a restoration. So we knew we were changing the art. And the box itself, the original box, the island was one big plastic tray, and it was very, very wide and big. And the box was like 18 inches by 24 inches. Like you could snowboard on it. And we knew we had to change that. And we ended up going through a lot of effort before we figured out if we made 3 plastic island trays that kind of nest on each other, like 2 to the side and 1 on top, like stacking solo cups. We could get height. Height means faster marbles. And then it could break down and fit into I don't want to say small box because it's still pretty big. It's 12 inches by 18 inches by 6 tall, but a somewhat manageable footprint. And while we were in there, we were trying to figure, well, what's the story of this? Is this because there was no real story in the original? It was a bunch of adventurers were out and they tried to steal this gem and get off the island, and it just was like super light version of an Indiana Jones type story. And we thought about a bunch of things, and we thought that, the adventure trope and the adventure genre has been done and it still can be good, but could we do something unexpected with it? And to your point, we said it's almost like a sequel. We said, what if the island just lay dormant for 30 years? And eventually it was purchased by, I like to call them the world's worst entertainment and resort company, where they basically promise you this action adventure resort, like spend a day on our island and walk around and it would be great. And we'll drop you off with a helicopter. It's like, when you get dropped off when you're summit skiing, or like all these things that promise this adventure. And it turns out it's just a death threat. It's just a cut rate island with still active volcanoes and snakes and fireballs and lava and everything else. And so you don't play an adventurer, at least in the base game. You play a tourist who is way out of their league. And that allowed us to have a lot of comedy with the sculpts and sort of the cards and the theming in the game, that so we've this game draws a lot from amusement parks. And, when you're waiting in line at Disney and they've got all these videos like, welcome to soaring before you get on your ride, right? And they're always like trying to keep you entertained. And so we got to do those sorts of things in the game. We're still putting together the exact rule book, but we're trying to make it look as much as possible like it's a park map with infographics like your day on Fireball Island. Here's how you're going to enjoy yourself. And you're not. I mean, you as a player are going to enjoy yourself. You as a little plastic figure are having a very, very bad day. And so just by tweaking this a little bit, it allowed us to be very tongue-in-cheek, and the adults we're doing some satire about corporate speak and marketing and politics, in a sense, promise the world and wait for people to show up and then you don't have to deliver, that sort of thing. Okay. But it's been fun, and we were a little nervous about presenting it. And as far as we can tell, everyone's kind of rolled with the theme.
That's good. That sounds like some for the kids, and any of the jokes that go over the kids' heads hits the adults. But tell us about for those of us who haven't played the original game, and can you tell us how this one, just the mechanics of what was added or what was tweaked, and the victory conditions?
Sure. The original game was a roll and move path game. So you rolled a die, moved that many spaces. You had a few choices about which paths you wanted to take. And then you would get some cards that would let you do surprise moves, like move an extra bit or take another turn. And the goal was to go around the corner of the island and get to the summit where there's this little plastic gem, and you take the gem, and then everyone was a mad dash down the rest of the path to the docks, and whoever got to the end first with the gem won. Well, it was dirt simple. But there were a couple things we noticed. You didn't really control your movement. If I continued to roll 2s and you rolled 6s, you would win. And obviously that would be an extreme, but high dice rolls did make a difference. And when you rolled a 1 is when one of the various fireballs on the island, which are marbles, would roll down and knock people over. But you had no control over when that would happen because you didn't know when you were going to roll a 1. So you might have a game where it's nothing but fireballs and a game where there's no fireballs. So we wanted to give more control over your movement and more control to players about fireballs. So we rethemed it and we said, the helicopter for this resort has dropped you off. What the corporation is asking you is to go take 3 pictures in 3 different parts of the island. And then and only then will the helicopter come back to get you. Because this corporation's too smart to put its own people on the island to take pictures for their website and their social media. So they kind of use the guesses as guinea pigs. And while you're out there, you're allowed to collect any treasures you want and take them home. And for once, this is a legit offer. So the goal is to go around, explore 3 different parts of the island, the west coast, the east coast, and the summit. Go to a certain space, get a picture while you're up there, which is just a card that says, you took a picture or a postcard. And then get various treasures and then run back to the helipad. And as soon as someone gets back to the helipad, the helicopter will come in 2 turns and everyone has 2 turns to get back there. And then whoever has the most points wins, and points are a combination of postcards that you took and treasures you collected. And then something which we're calling the heart of, we don't like to mention the name of the idol demon that lives up on the top. We're a little superstitious about it. So the heart of, you can look it up. Okay. And that represents the gem from the original game. And that's worth a lot of points. So you still have getting the gem and stealing the gem, which is definitely part of the original game. And what you do on your turn is you just play a card, tells you how far you can move and what action you can do. And the action might be to launch a fireball, or it might be to adjust something on the island. And you just play a card and draw a card. Okay. And there's a few more twists that are in there, but we wanted to keep the gameplay like really, really simple and really, really straightforward so that kids could play it and we didn't get overly complicated. The difference is when you do launch a marble, in the original game, they were fairly predictable. They went down paths. So if I was going to launch this marble, it was at least 9 times out of 10 going to hit you and knock you over. It might shove you instead of knocking you over, but most of the time it does what you expected. We wanted to add a lot more variety to the game. So when you launch a marble, you mostly know where it's going, but there's a lot of ways that this marble can change. So we have like routes for the marbles that have low walls, so they'll occasionally jump it. The big thing we have is there are 7 trees on the island whose roots stick out. And so you can turn the tree, and then the root acts as a bumper or a flipper to create different paths where the marble would go. Oh, okay. The idol that's at the top that you drop fireballs in has 3 different mouths. I was just playing with the prototype. We just got the latest prototype in from Hong Kong this morning, and the 3 mouths, it looks to be about 60 to 70% of the time it comes out the middle mouth, and then the remaining 30 or 40% it comes out a side mouth, which is always a great surprise. And so you have more control over where you go, more control over what you think you're going to do on your turn, and then less control once the action starts. Okay. And that's the whole thing. It takes it for like a 3 or 4 players with just the main game, and I'll get into expansions in a minute if you like, sure. It takes about 30, 40 minutes. Okay. All right. Now, get into the Kickstarter. It's going to be launching on April 3rd. April 3rd. Tuesday, April 3rd. Okay. I don't know if that's the past, the present, or the future from when people are listening to this. Okay. And how long will the Kickstarter go for? It'll go for 4 weeks. Okay. So it'll be done, I think that makes it May 1st. Okay, great. And then, talking about the Kickstarter, I understand we have a number of expansions that will be going with that you could also get as well. Yeah, we looked at it, and I've been playing just the base game because I don't want to imply or actually design anything like that. You get sort of 80% of a game, and only when you get the expansions does it come to life. Right. We wanted to be like, here's a game. It's a fun game. It's a great game. Now here's a couple other things that we've added on if you want to just add a little twist. And we're launching with 3 expansions. One is called The Last Adventurer, which lets you get the original theme and a 5th player into the game. It comes with a little figure. He's an adventurer. He's an 80s adventurer. He's a distant cousin of our friend Indiana Jones, and he's been on the island since it first closed, and he knows how it works. So he's basically like, come with me if you want to live. So he's not a tourist. He's like sort of that hero that you would expect in this game. So it allows you to play that fifth player, and it gives you all the cards you need to put in the deck to balance it for 5 players. It also gives each of the characters, including him, a power. So now it's not that you're this helpless tourist. Like, you basically get this power that, he sort of trains you to like live in the jungle. Because we're playing off the Indiana Jones, it also comes with a foam boulder that rolls down the island. So it's like a giant marble. It's like a size of a ping pong ball or a golf ball as opposed to a marble size. Oh, wow. And then on the other side of the island will be snakes. And they're these tiny marbles. And if you end your turn and a snake's touching you, you get poisoned, and then it makes it harder to take your turn. You're like delirious for a couple turns, and so you have a little bit less control over your figure. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have nothing. You're going to have a suboptimal turn. Maybe. Okay. We'll see. And then we have this little miniature one, which I really like, which is Crouching Tiger, Hidden Bees. And if you remember the game Ants in the Pants, it was like this little plastic sort of ant-looking thing. It was sort of an abstract ant, and you'd push down and it would leap up. We've done the same thing, but with a tiger figure. Okay. So it introduces a skill shot. There are some places on the island where you can't necessarily get hit by a marble, or if there's a couple people close together, the marble might hit one. But with this one, you play a card and you launch the tiger. You just put the tiger near the board and push its tail, and it springs up. And if you knock over any people, you get to take their treasures, and it's sort of like, it's a difficult shot. It's like high risk, high reward. Launch the tiger. And then we were cracking up today. There's just a plastic beehive filled with 10 marbles that represent bees, and they come tearing out. And again, like the poison, if you end your turn touching a bee, then you get stung, and it kind of just slows you down, so you don't move as fast because you're covered with bee stings. Okay. Which might make it hard to get back to the helicopter. And then the last one, which everyone seems to be really liking, is there's a whole separate island. It's like a 12-inch square other island with a pirate ship that's run ashore, and it's got the mast with the crow's nest at the top. And you put cannonballs into the crow's nest, and eventually it will tip over and spill all the marbles out onto the deck. What this one has over here is it's got special treasures, which are worth something at the end of the game. But more importantly, it allows you to play both your action cards on a turn rather than just one. So you can go get the treasure, and you can keep it for points at the end, or you can use them for these double moves, either to just do something unexpected. Wow. So you can have this combination, like, do you want more skill shots? Do you want a fifth player? Do you want powers? Do you want a different type of treasure? You can kind of mix and match these to sort of get the game that you want. And we're still putting together all the final Kickstarter stretch goals, and we like to keep some of them private until they, just as the way these things go. But we do have a number of other cards spec'd out that we're ready to unlock and just provide to the backers. We don't know how many there'll be or what will hit them, but it's more cards of the types that you would get in the game. And then there's a couple card types that aren't in the game. And so I've got those all printed out, and I'm play testing them tonight and tomorrow. Okay.
Cool. Well, I even though the Kickstarter at the time of recording is not officially launched yet, I think it's a foregone conclusion that you guys are going to fund like within the first few hours, I think. So here is hoping, right? It's always that tricky thing of if you set it too low and you fund in too fast, then if you set it too high and you don't make it, and so we're going around and around. Yeah, it would be great to be able to fund early and be able to relax a little bit. That would feel nice. We're excited. The main game is $60 on the Kickstarter. It'll be $70 in retail. And then if you buy the main game and all the expansions on Kickstarter, it's $130 total. It would be $150 at retail. So we are going to basically say we just want the main game, or we want all the expansions are going to be our two main tiers. But you'll always have the option to be like, look, I just want the Pirate Island. I don't want the Tiger. I don't want the adventure. I just want the two islands. And of course you can buy that. Okay. So, but we're trying to make it simple. Like, I want one, I want all. Okay, cool. And once if all the logistics and stuff like that goes smoothly, what's the tentative release date of getting the ship to the backers and having it go to retail?
If everything goes best, it will be around Essen at the end of October, and at worst, it'll be like for Black Friday right after Thanksgiving. So we're basically looking at the first couple weeks in November. Okay. Our goal was to get it to the Kickstarter backers first, and then roll it into retail after. The closer we get to Black Friday, the smaller that window will become, because we need to be in stores and ready to sell for the Christmas season, because we're hoping this is just, it's a big game, a lot of visual presence. Right. Hoping that people want to wrap it and put it under a tree if you celebrate Christmas.
Oh, heck, I may even give myself a Christmas gift with that one. So
there we go. One sale. We're good. So.
All right, Rob. Well, thank you so much. Very excited about the game. We've been very excited and happy with things that you've done, both on your own and with Restoration Games. It looks like you got another winner on your hands. So, but
I hope so. It's been a lot of effort to try to get marbles and plastic to behave in a way.
I can't even imagine. So.
Right, you want them to be fast, but you don't want to be getting them off the floor. On any regular basis. Like I said, sometimes one may jump the track and surprise us all, but it's going well.
Okay, cool. Well, before we let you go, we have a little game we like to play with our guests called the Mega Meeple Rapid Fire Round. And,
okay, I'm ready.
Just say two things, and you pick which one that you prefer. Okay?
Okay.
Zombies or vampires?
Vampires.
All right. Beaches or mountains?
Mountains.
Let's see. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
All right. In that case, regular or decaf?
Regular.
Okay.
I usually drink half calf, which is why I panicked, but
Oh, okay. And then finally, cake or pie?
Cake.
Okay, great.
Did I win?
Yes, you win.
Okay. Woo. Well, I was worried going into last one that I wasn't going to win, but I won.
Yeah, you got 5 for 5. So, well, Rob, thank you so much. Well, if people want to find out more about you, about the Kickstarter, about Restoration Games, or anything else that you are involved with, where can they go?
If you want to learn about Restoration Games, you just go to restorationgames.com. We also have social media, the name is Restoration Games, except for Twitter. That's too long, so it's Restoration Game. You leave the S off because Twitter doesn't allow it. And then if you want to know about me in particular, you can follow me on Twitter is the best way to do it, which is Rob Daviau, and that's DAV as in Victor, IAU. And I usually do a combination of game stuff, but at least 50-50, it's cooking. That's my main hobby. So come there for all your latest recipes and tips and tricks, and also to learn about games.
Sweet. So what's your favorite dish to make?
Whatever I'm making next. Like game design, I just like to create new things and try it. Like I made Spätzle for the first time last night. I've had it before, but I'd never made Spätzle before, so I did a whole German night. And right after we get done recording this, my bread should be done at second proof, which is why I asked you how long this was going to be.
Okay.
And I'm going to pop that in the oven.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rob, and looking forward to the Fireball Island Kickstarter in the game. And thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me on and letting me talk about it. And again, congratulations on the 50th.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Mega Meeple. Stay tuned next week as our guest is Jonathan Gilmore talking about another kind of island. This island does not have any fireballs on it, but it does have dinosaurs. So we have Jonathan Gilmore talking about Dinosaur Island. And we also touch base on his other creations. He's had a long, long career of creating and designing games. So we talk about Dead of Winter and Wasteland Express delivery service. So we touch on those things as well and talk about his illustrious career as a game designer. So stay tuned next week for that. If you haven't already, go to iTunes and subscribe. And while you're there, put out some of that 5-star loving and leave us a really good review. Tell us how fantastic we are. We really appreciate that. But if you're not an iTunes guy or Apple's person, you could go to our website, www.themegameeple. All of our podcast episodes stream live there. And you could subscribe to our emails. You'll be notified when those episodes go live. Also, follow us on any of our social media stuff. All the links to those things are found on the website as well. And if you really like the podcast, go ahead and you could support us either on a per episode or per monthly basis by going to our Pod Pledge page. Again, the link to that is also found on the website. And it will just really help us out with the monthly hosting costs and crap like that. But if you don't have the spare change to support the show, you could also support it just by spreading the word. Tell your friends about it. Word of mouth is one of the greatest ways of advertising and helping us grow our audience. So again, thank you so much for listening to the Mega Meeple and supporting the show however way, either by word of mouth or monetarily. And we hope you will listen again next week. And until then, we'll see you at the gaming table.